Solving systems of equations, so finding the values of the variables that satisfy each equation, can be done in multiple ways. One way is through substitution. And the method of substitution is where we solve for one variable in a single equation and then plug it into another equation to reduce the number of variables that appear in that equation. And you can kind of follow this with however many equations there are. You can continue to go through and essentially eliminate all variables except for one in the last equation, and then you can solve for that unknown. And then you kind of work backwards to get all of your variables. So the steps that we follow are, the first thing is you just solve for one variable in an equation, and then you substitute the expression for that variable into the other equation. Now this process here is just for two equations. Once you have that, you can solve that new equation for the second variable, and then you can do what's called back substitution, where you back substitute that variable that you found into the original equation to solve for the original variable. So let's go ahead and do an example so we can see that. You want to pick an equation, doesn't matter which equation you pick, but pick an equation where it's easy to solve for one of the variables. So here we're going to solve for y in the first equation, and we get y is equal to 1 minus 3x. Okay. Our next step is to take that, okay, this is y, and we're going to plug it in to this y in the second equation. So we have 5x plus 2 times 1 minus 3x equals 1. Now notice that we have an equation with only one variable, x, and so we can solve for that. I'm going to distribute this 2 through, so we have plus 2 minus 6x equals 1. We can combine the 5x and the negative 6x, that's a negative x, plus the 2 equals 1. And we can subtract 2, we get negative x equals negative 1, and so x is equal to 1. After solving for that variable, we then take that and plug it back in to this equation where we solved for y. And we get y equals 1 minus 3 times x, which is 1. And that's 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. So now we have the solution. X is 1 and y is negative 2. You can write it as a point, or you can write it as those individual variables.